the Philippines, and Anna and Sneha will be doing Nicaragua and India on Friday. So as a warm-up activity, maybe I'll give you guys like 3 minutes to think of this. What are stereotypes? Maybe you can define it and then give some examples of what you think stereotypes are.
A stereotype is basically an accusation or an assumption based on your opinion or thoughts. Isn't that what it basically is? Like,
Noah.
Like if you see someone who's
Sit at the
full of
table right here.
like if you see someone who's looking at cheese, like, well, they're probably bad.
You want to come up
So
here?
you don't know for sure.
Come up here so you can have discussion.
So that's what a stereotype is. It's basically an assumption based on thoughts.
You need your computer?
My
The Alex is nice. You're me.
Sorry for the rejection in science.
What happened? Y'all were mean to each other in science?
No,
Yeah.
I chose Kendra as a partner. She ended up being with her group anyway. So everything I think is fine.
All right. Who has one?
Well, a stereotype is essentially an assumption made by someone based off of their opinions and thoughts on someone else or something else.
Okay. What do you think about someone before actually getting to know them? And does anyone have any examples? I mean, like, some examples that I can think of now is stereotypes doesn't just, it's mainly about, like, when we think of stereotypes, we think about stereotypes of other people. But stereotypes generally is what you think of something. So maybe, what are your stereotypes of a tree? Maybe your stereotypes of a tree is that the leaves are green. But in reality, not all leaves are green. Even though most trees have green leaves, not all trees have green leaves. So it's kind of like a stereotype. Basically, what it is your preconceived notions of a person, of who they are before actually getting to know. And so, like I asked a while ago, with like what stereotypes or what stereotype means and what what it means. What do you think going beyond a single story, like based on the stereotypes? What do you think beyond a single story means? Anyone have any ideas?
Maybe beyond a single story of a country or a culture.
Beyond the single story could be like, maybe there's a stereotype for, I don't know, middle schoolers. Maybe someone older might say, oh, middle schoolers are very rowdy. But then, like, not all middle schoolers are rowdy. Some are, a lot more shy or different personality types. But because this person had an experience with like middle schoolers being rowdy, then maybe that's what they think. That's what they think middle schoolers are. So beyond the single story is kind of like, it's more like getting to know. So like beyond the single story would be the stereotype, and then beyond the single story would be getting to know that person, or getting to know like the specific individuals within the group that you talk about. And so that's what we'll be talking about today, specifically for the Philippines. A huge stereotype, or like, and it does have some like weight into why it's a stereotype, is that Filipinos are nurses. So the single story of Filipino immigrants and nurses. And it is true that a lot of Filipinos are nurses, and there is some, that is true. But getting to know beyond the single story, beyond the stereotype that Filipinos are nurses and they go into the medical field, beyond the single story would be going into why like a lot of Filipinos are nurses. and getting into the details, and maybe even getting to know, a Filipino. And I mean, not all Filipinos are nurses. That's just a stereotype. And I would like to show you guys a video that I found very informative about. This gives you, which gives you a lot of background information about Filipinos being nurses, and it kind of paints a single story. And then later on, I would like to talk more about, my story, because I immigrated from the Philippines. So here's a 7-minute video that I would like to share.
One reason for the fact that there's a lot of Filipino nurses here, based on the video, is the exchange visitor program, which after that was made, a lot of nurses joined.
Yeah, yeah. So the video talks about how they increase the programs that helps train nurses, and yeah, so that is one reason why. No one else wants to come up and share what they got from the video? Maybe we can have one more person maybe share something. So part of going beyond a single story is understanding what the stereotype is, and then digging deeper into, like, why is that a stereotype? What is the story behind that? Like, one thing that I've noticed, especially going into like throughout this series that we've been doing, of learning about the different countries and how they how they're different from each other and how they're different from the US, is kind of like already us going beyond the story. And in the video, I actually like recognized how we talked about Ferdinand Marcos, right? Like the last time we talked about activism. If you guys remember, Ferdinand Marcos, who tried to be a dictator in the Philippines, he was mentioned in the video. And then we also talked about, maybe in the very beginning of the semester when we started talking, I talked to you guys about the Philippines being colonized by Spanish, and then the Japanese, like, and then the U.S., and then the Japanese tried to conquer it. And that's something that we've mentioned earlier on in the semester. And so we've been having a lot of practice, looking at the different, going beyond a single story in terms of looking at different cultures and people within those cultures. And guess to continue our presentation, uh, I would like to share, like, like, part of going beyond a single story is maybe getting to know someone from, from the group. And yeah, and so I'll share my story. So we'll be going even further beyond the single story. So my story is, I'm also an immigrant from the Philippines, and this is my family. My mom is a physical therapist, and she studied. She was actually trying to study to become a nurse in the Philippines as well when I was younger, but then she decided to be a physical therapist. And once she graduated from, from her studies, and started practicing to become a physical therapist, there was an opening here in the U.S. I remember when I was 7, my mom started going to Guam and taking the taking the different tests to become a physical therapist. And yeah, back when I was 8, we, like, all 6 of us moved here to the U.S., to North Carolina, and we've been living there ever since. And the main reason why we moved was because, yeah, again, my mom got a job offer as a physical therapist here in the U.S. And actually, most of the people that we met first when we moved here to the United States were also Filipino physical therapists. So I would say in like the company that my mom used to work in, um, most of the physical therapists were Filipinos, and like you heard a while ago, $28.5 billion worth of money was imported from other countries to the Philippines. Uh, Going abroad and working abroad is a way for, again, people to Filipinos to support their families back at home. And so that is, yeah, that's my story, and that's going beyond single story. And one thing I would like to add is that going beyond the single story is going beyond the stereotypes. And going beyond the stereotypes is, getting to know someone. So if you have maybe someone that you don't really know, you don't know too much. Maybe you have your own preconceived notion, like, oh, this person is shy, or like just preconceived notions without knowing someone. Maybe you can try to get to know them. That way, you can go beyond single story of what you think, not necessarily what really is. Um, so yeah, the main takeaway that I would like for you guys to know is going beyond a single story is going out there and learning more about learning more about different cultures, and then getting to know someone um, within those cultures. And yeah, that concludes this presentation.